97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome, everybody. An exciting, jam-packed Thursday edition of Sports Daily. Today, I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor with you as we get ready to look to the weekend, as we get ready to dive into the latest in the world of conference realignment. We'll have some betting talk with Chelsea Messenger coming up later in this hour. Also in this hour, moving up in regularly scheduled time is Tim Fitzgerald. K-State's got an open practice today. So Tim's going to jump on with us here shortly, and we'll get what he's looking forward to at K-State practice. But also, boy, this realignment stuff's nuts. We'll get into that in just a second when we're as we set things up here. The Royals are streaking, Tommy. Winners now of 4 straight 4-0 winners last night over the Mets. Hey, you know, Cole Reagans, the guy they got in the Chapman trade, was pretty good. Here we go. Royals starting to give us, you know, something to at least pay attention to, right? And it's a win streak. Sorry, a 5-game win streak, I should say. We're up to 5 games now. It's been a long time. And we'll see if they can keep it going. But really good to see that start out of that guy last night and to keep the streak alive. It's been kind of fun to pay attention to that. You know, whether it's been in jest or for real, it's something. And we appreciate that. We can get into that a little bit later as well. Lots of giveaways today. So let's set this up. We're going to have 3 different giveaways. We've got Win Surge vouchers that we're going to give away for you. We've got HTO vouchers, essentially, free T cards we're going to give away. Those are normal. But now we have another one in the mix here. And we're not giving this away yet, but we'll set it up for you here. Def Leppard and Motley Crue tickets in Tulsa.
All right.
They play on the 16th. Are you kidding me? So we've got a limited set of pairs of tickets to that concert in Tulsa. Ooh, boy. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll get to that giveaway coming up a little later in the show. Not going to tell you when. You got to stay tuned. Thanks for joining us on KFH. You can always get in touch with the program if you're listening to us on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. You can find us now on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. So we're putting that Twitch link up on Twitter. So, you know, that's a mouthful, but we are now on Twitch, which is exciting. That's where all the kids are, right? Like Twitch is where you watch video games being played, right?
Isn't
that Twitch? Yeah, something like that.
Should we start bringing up a video game and just playing it in the background?
Yeah, I think so. My kids found in this random like placement of old stuff of mine that, of course, will sit there for eternity. That's what we do with like drawers full of stuff. And they found like an old Game Boy in there, and they're like, "Oh my!" And I put new batteries in it, and it totally works. They've been having fun with that. So I don't know if you can Twitch Game Boy games, but either way, you can find us on Twitch now. Glad to be here. Jad Chambers producing for us. Tommy, how are you this morning?
Hey, I'm good. Looking forward to jumping into it today. I know that it seems like we're right on the brink, like the edge of the cliff on major, massive conference realignment. I think everything else up to this point has been, you know, sort of the appetizer for the main course. And just the feel that I'm getting, I think it's going to get busy. It's going to get wild. It's going to get crazy. And I'm looking forward to talking to Fitz about that today, because I know he's got some insight on it too. I really do believe we are right on the precipice of some major, major changes.
Yeah, it's we're going to get into all this, and we have a quick first segment so that we can get to Fitz here. We're just sort of setting everything up, but it is wild. The new thing I'm seeing this morning, Tommy, is that USC, when it left and went into the Big Ten, basically said we don't want Oregon in, one of their direct competitors.
Wow. All right.
So we'll get to all of this with Fitz. He's got his finger on the pulse. He also likes to stir the pot a little bit. So he's probably more familiar with some of the behind-the-scenes rumblings with the bloggers and beat writers and everybody's, throwing stones and casting shade and all that good stuff. So we'll get into all of that. Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, is going to join us. Stay tuned. All these giveaways coming up for you. It is a generous show today here on Sports Daily. We'll be right back with Tim Fitzgerald next. Chad's tracking down Tim Fitzgerald for us right now. We'll get to that in just a second. It has been an insane last couple of days. And I know there's a lot of like rumors and weird stuff happening, but I think, Tommy, it's because there's so many different, pieces happening all at once. What we have been essentially waiting for so long with the Pac-12 and this media deal finally comes to fruition, and Colorado leaves, and now the Pac-12 has to present its proposal, and it's not very good, which is what we suspected all along. And now teams and schools have some really difficult decisions to make. For the Big 12, we think that it still pertains to the Four Corner schools. And then there's also now Oregon with some rumblings of doing things, perhaps even up to 4 others. The Big 10 reportedly coming calling. So let's get into all of it. Let's bring in our K-State insider, our conference realignment insider of sorts this summer, Tim Fitzgerald.
He's got all the insight on what you want to know and maybe some of what you don't want to know. Here's K-State insider Tim Fitzgerald.
All right, Fitz, this is sort of what we've been waiting for, whether or not, Colorado was the linchpin or not. The Buffaloes are back. That's happened since the last time we talked. And now the bad media deal, which we suspected was, all that the Pac-12 brass had to offer, is in play. The Four Corner schools are having decisions to make. Oregon and Washington, and maybe even Cal and Stanford now have decisions to make. This thing has gone, like nuclear on the Pac-12 here in about the last 72 hours.
Yeah, it's exactly what we've been predicting would happen once they saw that there wasn't really a media deal. What a lot of us have been saying since the start, the only thing that we've been wrong about is understanding how inept the Pac-12 leadership was to use delay tactics and literally lie to their own fans and their own conference members. So this was kind of inevitable. What I find interesting, though, is the sudden increased interest in Pac-12 teams from the Big Ten to extend to 4, which is what Dan Wetzel is reporting. They're going to take that entire coastal area with Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. And I think that's just such a blessing for Cal because literally no one wants them other than their endowment and their big size and their influence, which is an important factor to the Big Ten. But the Four Corners to the Big 12 has been predictable from the start. It has been exactly how we thought this would go, and it's just taken longer to get there because of the delaying tactics of the Pac leadership.
Fitz, I am a big fan of just perusing different message boards. And it's been a fun time going through and looking at all these different schools and their message boards and their fans and people saying that they're connected and they're hearing from sources and they're doing all this. And I know like 99% of it is conjecture, but I feel like the overall common theme is that, and what I've heard different reporting from Dennis Dodd and others, is that there's not any one of the Four Corner schools like Utah, Arizona State that want to singularly be the one to break up the Pac-12. So do you find truth in that? Do you think that it's kind of they all band together and they all leave at the same time? Is there truth to that thought that not one school really wants to be the one to serve the final blow to the Pac-12?
Well, I think that's their belief, but I mean, I think we can all agree that the Pac-12 is, been mortally wounded already. Maybe you'd be viewed as the one mercifully finishing them off because this thing's dead. And without a proper media deal supporting their conference, I don't see how they would have survived in any scenario. I think it's more Pac-12 leadership is so timid and they've made so many bad decisions. They can't make decisions, and they need someone to lean on to help them make the decision. It's been one of the darndest things I've ever seen in my career covering college sports for almost my entire life is how inept this Pac-12 leadership is. It makes the old Big 12 before Brett Yormark look brilliant. It's just they've been on an island surviving, and now the island is sinking into the ocean.
Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, but we're starting with some conference realignment insight today. I mean, I don't see a path forward for the Pac-12 here. I don't know what that looks like. We saw yesterday the report from several places that the Big Ten would now begin considering the idea of perhaps Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. We have seen in a variety of places the idea of perhaps Oregon to the Big 12. I believe the report last night from somewhere that Tommy sent me said the Big 12 doesn't want to do anything until it hears from Oregon. Is Oregon even remotely possible, do you think, for the Big 12? I mean, I can't imagine it is if the Big 10 is interested in them, but what do you think Yormark ought to do here with this info?
Well, it is interesting, isn't it? And I think Oregon is worth waiting on. I mean, Washington clearly is thinking they're going to get in the Big Ten, whether it's this year or in a few years, and they just kind of struggle through. And Oregon, though, becomes a question mark because it doesn't carry the same academics as the other three schools we mentioned from the Pac-12 North. And there's been a lot of conjecture that USC does not want to be in the same conference as Oregon anymore because of the influence of Phil Knight and how he kind of exerts his power. It is a concern for the Big 12, of course. You might be bringing in a mini Texas that thinks it should get its way all the time. But I'll say this. If Arizona wants to come to the Big 12, they better do it soon because there is a good chance here that Brett Yormark will pause at 14 and say, okay, we're going to just wait now to see what develops because the ACC has some weird things going on with Florida State, possibly leading a full-on rebellion against the conference, or at least suing to get out of the grant of rights or buying their way out of the grant of rights. And if Florida State goes, that entire ACC gets into very shaky territory because they've been leaning on that grant of rights being so strong. And if it's not that strong, then we could see a lot of other movement. And that might be something Brett Yormark wants to wait on.
Let me ask you about Utah for a second. I'm not sure there's been another school that's been more adversarial against the Big 12 and changes and realignment and all of that than Utah. But now it sounds like, and I'm not exactly sure where all this is coming from, but it sounds like maybe it's more about BYU than it is about the conference entirely. And I know that you wrote a report the other day about Utah apparently not returning the calls from the Big 12. Where do things stand with Utah right now?
Well, I think Utah has been pretty militant and I mean it in that literal sense in their support of the Pac-12. They just weren't, loyal members. They were militant anti-Big 12. Their fan base was hostile. I mean, extremely hostile on social media. Even their leadership was kind of standoffish, and that report about them not returning calls came from an ESPN member on the SiriusXM college sports channel. But that was also information from Big 12 Media Days, which is now a couple of weeks old in this environment. That's important to note because a lot happens. But I would say I'll be surprised if the Big 12 doesn't make Utah sweat it a little bit. And I've never really seen anything quite like what I've seen from some corners of the Pac-12, just the literal hostility towards fans. And I accept that it's probably rooted in a hatred of BYU, their rival. I don't think any of us can quite understand the level of disdain for each other. There's nothing KU K-State didn't even come close to it. I don't think KU Missouri comes close to it. That's how bad it is. So I think this has been a lot of ways to kind of hide the fact that they just despise and don't respect BYU in any way. I'm going to be blunt here. I've sensed a lot of religious bigotry, even from fellow Utahns over this whole situation. And have taken it out on the Big 12 because it's ugly at a level where even they know it's ugly, the hatred for their rival. And so they've just kind of turned their attention to trashing the entire Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, look, would be nice to have. I would love to have that rivalry right in the smack middle of the conference. I'm curious about Arizona State, though. Utah, I get Utah, Arizona State. So the Board of Regents apparently in Arizona today is meeting, and we hear this with everybody, right? Well, you can't, you got to stick together. We got to have Arizona and Arizona State break up, and they were saying that in Oklahoma too, and I'm sure they were saying that in Iowa too at some point, and that conversation would exist and will go nowhere in Oregon and Texas. A&M and Texas broke up. So I think if Arizona's great and Arizona State's not, you can't hold back Arizona. But is Arizona State attractive enough that it doesn't even really matter because the Big 12 should want them both anyway?
Yeah, I think they should be, but I don't know that they are. Let's put this into full context. It's been the Arizona State president who was good friends with Larry Scott, the former commissioner who really put their conference in this situation. They've been full supporters of these failed ideas. And there's a lot of irony in the fact that Arizona State leadership in many ways played right into the hand of the destruction of the Pac-12. And for them to get a lifeboat after sinking the ship is filled with irony. But I think the Board of Regents for Arizona wants them to be tied together. But let's keep this in mind. This isn't a situation where one school's being invited, the other isn't. Both schools are being invited. And if one wants to hesitate and not take it, well, that's their decision. They're not being left out. They're choosing to stay out. I don't think that's the case. For everything I'm hearing the last 48 hours, Arizona State finally has realized, okay, this is over. I mean, the TV package is awful. We're hearing, some of our more significant members in Oregon and Washington are going to be gone. We got to get out of here. They probably still have the matches in their pocket as they run out of the burning house, but I think they're going to end up in the Big 12 in a very safe, warm environment, and I think they'll enjoy being in the Big 12 once they do a few laps around the conference.
Fitz, I read a report yesterday that George Kliavkoff had approached NBC multiple times in the last year, as recently as a month ago, looking for some kind of Hail Mary, some kind of savior to, get a linear partner as part of a media rights deal. It didn't happen. If I were him, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think we all can say that we would have done differently than what he has done as leader of the Pac-12. But if I were him, I would have called up the ACC and just been like, can we do something here? Can we come together? Can we merge? The alliance thing that happened last year was a joke, but in some kind of like merger or something, that's obviously probably not going to happen now. But do you think that there was ever a point where that could have been viable?
No, I mean, the ACC's locked into a contract that ESPN doesn't want to, revisit because it's a great business deal for them. You're talking about the two Power 5 conferences with the least amount of per school value. I don't know how they would have saved each other in that way. The bottom line is the Pac-12 put themselves in this position by sitting down at the table from all reports and looking at media partners and saying, we think we're worth $50 million per school, when the market wasn't even to half of that. And you saw Fox get up from the table immediately and walk away. If you sit down with such an outlandish opening bid, you're just going to turn off, possible suitors. And from what I'm hearing is, NBC finally got there. The Pac-12 just wouldn't compromise. They just thought they were worth so much more than they were being offered. And finally, NBC said, look, we're done negotiating because we're not going to find a number here. And I've just never seen such a poorly executed round of negotiations from a conference that claims to be filled with academic whizzes that they've just so messed this entire thing up. I'm just dumbfounded at how horrendous the leadership was in the Pac-12.
Yeah, academia and the business world, I think, are two very different worlds.
Right.
Tim Fitzgerald, our K-State insider, and who we've leaned on the hardest during all this conference realignment stuff. We're to this point now. If it's just Arizona, which I don't think seems possible at this point, right? Colorado gives you the odd number. Arizona State and Arizona seem to want to stay together, so that would necessitate the need for another school. Is it a situation where you could add UConn now and wait to see what happens with Oregon? I don't think there's any reason to cap it even at, what would that be, 16? I think you can add more, right? And then just add more later again if the opportunity arises. Like if Oregon wants to come later, who cares how many teams you have? You take Oregon. What's the point in waiting for Oregon and not striking? I mean, the iron could not be hotter than it is right now, Tim.
You need to have the permission of your TV entities, and I think that's what's going on here. They had to get permission to go to 16. They had the green light to go to 14. I don't think anyone's eager to include Oregon in at 15 or 16. So, I think the situation here is that the money has to be there to add these schools. However, UConn is in a situation where, look, they would take a partial share. So if they don't have full blessing of, your TV partners or Fox in particular, I think they would discount to the partial share at least to start with. Brady Ormark really wants UConn. He really does, and it's entirely possible he might stop at 15 if Utah hesitates and really go back to the board and say, I think we should take UConn to give us the proper balance in the East and West. And, then again, I think the TV partners might say, no, you're going to take the existing P5 if you want the money. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think here before the kickoff of the season, certainly the Big 12 will be at 16 members for starting in 2024.
Fitz, my final question on conference realignment. Obviously, Colorado made the big announcement last week that they're coming back to the Big 12, but kind of reading some different reports that they really kind of seemed like they didn't really want to make the move, but they felt like it was the move that was best for them. Do you get that sense too, that it really wasn't a, homecoming of sorts? It was more like, well, this is just kind of the best business thing for us, and I guess we'll do it.
I think you nailed it. I mean, I respect that the Pac-12 did not want to come apart. I mean, I have full respect for that. They wanted to hang on. I think we saw it happen to the Big 12, where they got their back against the wall. And even the schools then had offers. They had potential movement to other conferences, but they hung on to see what was going to happen. So I think it's fair to say you want your conference to survive. I think they just went well beyond that point, and into kind of absurdity at some point with how patient they were waiting on a contract, a media rights deal that just wasn't ever going to arrive.
It's wild. I'm ready for it. I hope. Here's the question I have. I thought if it was Power 5, the TV networks had to take them. Number one, do they not have to take them, or is it just up to 16? And then, this all also feels like to me like this is all a moot point, and it's all about 2031.
Yeah, what gets confusing for the Big 12 is they still have 2 more seasons on their old contract. So the new contract isn't kicking until 25. So anyone you're bringing in for 24 has to be approved by the current contract. And part of one of their earlier deals was they removed the escalators from the contract. So now they have to get permission. I think what makes this all palatable to ESPN in particular is it frees them up from any idea that they need to sign a contract with the Pac-12. I think once Colorado made the move and it became clear that one way or another, the Big 12 would have inventory time zones for ESPN to show late night games. The Pac-12 was really doomed, and that's what we've been saying. All of a sudden, all ESPN wanted from the Pac-12 was that late night slot. If someone else can provide it, which the Big 12 will be able to, they were done. So I think they're interested in actually saving money by bringing in teams into the Big 12 as opposed to trying to pay the Pac-12, whatever millions per year just for one late night game.
Well, Fitz, we're inching closer and closer to the start of the college football season. Of course, K-State getting ramped up, getting ready to go. I know that you've been following that closely over the last few weeks. What's new in that world? What are we looking at here as we're getting we're only 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks or so away from the start of the college football season? Yeah.
I don't have any idea what happened to July. We just celebrated July 4th, and now it's August 3rd. The summer has been so fast, and I think a big part of it is all this expansion realignment stuff. But K-State camp's open. We haven't heard much out of it. We have had no access. We will here at the top of the hour. I'll be heading over to the indoor complex, the new one, to have a media opportunity to watch a little bit of football practice. And so I'm interested to go see that. That's why I'm going earlier today. And so it's here. I mean, as soon as fall camp hits, it's football season to me, although I'm going to sneak off for vacation next week. But it's incredible how quickly this has come up, and I think this is going to be a really entertaining year of Big 12 football. Folks, if we thought it was unpredictable before, let's just throw 4 new schools into the mix, also playing Oklahoma and Texas, and see where we end up. I think this could be utter chaos in 2023 of Big 12 football.
It will be. I mean, of course it will be. K-State's in a good position though. Open practice. Is this open practice? Is this the best look you're going to get today? What is that, starting in about 20 minutes?
Yeah, we're supposed to be up there at 10:10. We get to see very little other than some position drills and stretching, but you kind of see who's out there, who looks healthy, who looks the role. And you just pick up little stuff. These aren't really educational that much, but boy, it kind of gets you into the mode. I mean, it makes it real tangible that football season's here when you're watching the guys out there practicing. So it's just a good opportunity, and eventually we have opportunities to talk to coaches after practice and those type of things, and we'll start getting a lot more detail and paint a better picture for our subscribers. And by the way, we're having a 75% off sale right now across the network. So if you're a KU fan, you can head on over to fog.net. K-State fans to Go PowerCat, and there's a site for every school, basically every P5 school. So 75% off, but that ends today. Another sale will start in tomorrow, but this is the best one.
All right. Well, go check that out at gopowercat.com. The next time we talk, things could be very different. Fitz, this is sort of what we've been waiting for. Buckle up and enjoy practice today. Hopefully it's not 1 billion degrees up there too.
Well, we'll be in the air conditioning. So that's good because I like air conditioning because I'm fat and old. And I hope they don't ask me to actually practice because this could be a problem. I could hurt some guys.
They are, we have a lot of questions at the wide receiver position. Fitz out of the slot. We could see it.
Explosive speed has never been a phrase used to describe Tim Fitzgerald.
Uses his body to get position, and how are your hands? I think you'll be all right.
Yes, I use my body in a falling position. My hands are really good at breaking my fall. So there you go.
There you go. All right. Tim Fitzgerald, gopowercat.com, at Life of Fitz on social media. Fitz, you're on Twitch today for the first time. So hello to all our Twitch followers.
I had no idea I was twitching. So hi, everyone. Hi.
You're getting twitchy with it. Oh, God, that sounds old. That was brutal.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Hey, I got to go
Fitz.
now. I can't be on with you guys anymore.
Ugh. I'm going to go put myself in a mandatory timeout for that.
That was bad.
That was awful. All right. See you, Fitz. Okay. We're far from done here. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to pivot a little bit. Chelsea Messenger. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had Chelsea on. So we'll talk a little betting with her. We're getting closer to the preseason. We'll check out the futures market a little bit. We'll check out Major League Baseball now post-trade deadline, see if there's anything out there in that world. That's what we'll have next for you, Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Castor. We are getting twitchy with it.
No.
line is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey sports betting insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports Daily. Thanks for joining us on all the different ways you can join us, either over the air on KFH here or on our various video streams. If you go to YouTube or Twitch, you can just search KFH Radio or follow our KFH Facebook page. Glad to be here with you. Joining us now, as you just heard, Chelsea Messenger. It's been a couple of weeks. Chelsea, how are you?
Yeah, we have football tonight. And even though it's the preseason and it's going to be third stringers, fighting for a job in the fourth quarter, it's still football. And we have something to bet on tonight.
We've got lines, so you have any angles for us? Jets, Browns, Hall of Fame game. What do you think?
I'm laughing because it is the preseason, and people should know that you need to be treading very lightly when it comes to preseason football, because remember, these teams do not care who wins. But there has been one trend in the recent stretch that's been really high, and that's been the under. The under has hit in 7 of the last 10 matchups in the Hall of Fame game, and we've seen some really low-scoring totals. In fact, only 2 teams have scored more than 20 points by themselves in the last years dating back to 2014. However, the odds makers know this. The total is set very low at 33.5. I will say 7 of the last 10 have also gone under 33 total points, but last season we saw an outlier. 27-11 final score, which sounds like a low-scoring game, right? No, the total was 30 in that game. I do think it's going to be lower scoring, but it's built into the number. I would lean towards the under, but please don't put the house on it. It's still preseason football, but it makes sense because think about these offensive coordinators. They're not putting anything on tape for these teams. It's going to be real vanilla. It's going to be conservative play calling, and they're just trying to see if these third-string guys can complete a pass. So wouldn't expect offensive fireworks, but again, kind of built into the number.
I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Regardless of the outcome of this Hall of Fame game tonight, is there anything that you think bettors can take away from this game for futures bets or something like that? Or is this game so insignificant that you really can't take anything away to try to find trends for later on?
Yeah, no, it's August 3rd. I feel like half the players are probably thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, we have a game already. So no, I think this is strictly for the coaches to see, which players are going to make the cut. Maybe we'll see somebody who surprises us, because I'm thinking back to last year. The only storyline that turned into a big one was Josh Jacobs. Remember how he played in the preseason for the Raiders, and everybody thought, oh no, if he's getting a lot of carries in the preseason, it means they hate him. And he's in a contract year. He's going to have a terrible season. They're not going to give him the football. Then what did he do? I'm pretty sure he led the league in rushing. So we'll see. Maybe there will be a storyline like that to watch for, but as of now, nothing on my radar.
All right, let's look then at Major League Baseball a little bit. We're through the trade deadline. The big, maybe the biggest name traded, Max Scherzer, goes tonight for the Rangers. I know we haven't seen a lot of it yet, and you guys definitely follow trends in those things, but how much does a trade deadline or new faces in new places move the needle in the betting world?
Yeah, don't you have a futures ticket on the Rangers?
Oh, yeah, I have two. I have $200 50 to 1 odd bets at BetMGM right now on the Rangers.
Ooh.
So I'm happy about that. It didn't. I'm going to check right now as we're talking about it because I have not checked in the last day or so. But right after that trade, it did not move the needle on the cash out option. I can say that.
Ooh, that kind of stinks. But I will say the Rangers are down to 9 to 1 to win the World Series. And let me tell you, I think we talked about your Rangers bet before. And the one thing I said was I didn't think they had the top line pitching to compete in the postseason. Now they've got it. They've added Max Scherzer, who is a veteran of the postseason. We all know that the lights are not going to be too bright for Max Scherzer. So now you have Max Scherzer as your number one. Evaldi is 1A. And then, you have the other guys. Even Jordan Montgomery was a great pickup for the Rangers. So the one need that I thought that they really had, and I think they do have a need at catcher. I believe they picked somebody up. But the biggest need was starting pitching, and they filled it. They've got the second best offense in all of baseball, and the best offense is in the National League, in the Atlanta Braves. So really like the Rangers after the trade deadline, and also Rangers big favorite today behind Max Scherzer.
So a matchup, Chelsea, that we pay attention to here locally, the Royals and the Mets. So the Royals have been awful all season long, but they're on a 5-game winning streak right now. And they're actually, I'm looking at the odds right now, they're bigger favorites than the Mets are in this matchup. In your mind, does that tell you more about the Royals and their win streak, or how bad the Mets have become?
I think it's how bad the Mets have become and how bad the vibes are probably in the clubhouse now that they're paying people who are not on their team, I think $125 million. That's like the roster of the Pirates and the Rays as teams combined. So the vibes can't be good in the Mets clubhouse right now. And I was looking at the overnight lines, and I'm seeing money come in on the Royals today. I think it's because there's such big plus money, and I think the line is still, at where the Mets used to be before they traded away everybody. And it's not just the starting pitchers. They trade away position players too, guys like Mark Hanna. So I think we're seeing a lot of money come in on the Royals because people are saying the Mets do not deserve to be big favorites against anyone right now.
What else in the baseball world, Chelsea, if we have a few minutes left here for you, or really across the world, World Cup, anything? What are some of your favorite bets today or in the near future?
Yeah, not betting on the World Cup. I can tell you that. The women's team has been terrible to bet on. I don't think they've covered a single number or, covered on the money line, because soccer betting's different. You have to do the three-way money line, basically. They have been very underwhelming. So let's stick to baseball, and let's stick to Max Scherzer. Today, I'm expecting a lot of strikeouts from Max Scherzer. It seems kind of square because, he's a big name, whatever, but he's facing the White Sox. In back-to-back games, each starter of the Rangers has gotten 11 strikeouts. Dane Dunning last night, 11 strikeouts against the White Sox. Game before that, it was, who was it? Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney got 11 strikeouts against this very White Sox lineup. And over the last month, White Sox striking out the fifth most in all of baseball. I think Max Scherzer can get to 7 strikeouts today. It's a little juicy at minus 160, but that jump from 7 to 8 strikeouts is kind of a big one. And also, if you look across the board, it's minus 160 at BetMGM. It's minus 192 over at FanDuel. And I think it's minus 170 at DraftKings. So go to BetMGM if you like that bet. It's a little juicy, but I like it.
So on BetMGM, I'm looking right now, they boosted a bet too. Scherzer to have more than 8 or more, and the Rangers to win, they've got boosted to plus 180. So if you think the White Sox sucks, that might be a way to go. I know you don't like parlays, but they did boost that today. It is Max Scherzer's season, of course. Anything else out there, Chelsea?
That's about it. I have my eye on the over in the Reds and the Cubs game. I don't know if you've seen some of these scores of these games. The Cubs have scored 36 runs in the last 2 games. I think that's more than like the Broncos scored in like a couple games combined. Oh, man. So the offense has been red hot for the Cubs. Over the last month, Cubs ranked second in all of baseball in WRC+. Take a look at a Cubs team total over 5.5 or just a plain old over at 10, because both these starting pitchers, I think, have ERAs over 4.
All right. There's a couple of things for you. We are getting so close to the football season. We can't wait, Chelsea. We appreciate the visit as always. Let's talk again next week, and we'll have a ton of preseason action and maybe more meaningful preseason action on tap.
We'll see. Thanks for having me.
That was the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. All right, we have a lot of stuff to give away today. One of those giveaways will be Def Leppard and Motley Crue tickets. We've got 7 pairs of those to give away over the next few days. We're not going to do that one yet, so stay tuned for that one. Let's do some iced tea. It's hot outside again today. We're going to get some relief here in the next few days, but not yet. So in the spirit of flirting with triple digits and reaching a high we hadn't seen in about a decade yesterday. Let's give away 2 cups of iced tea on us. More than 25 flavors available for you at HTO here in Wichita, either east or west, 21st and 127th East, 13th and Tyler West. 2 free tea cards to our first caller. Coming soon in Derby, by the way. But our first caller, either Wichita location, 2 free cups of tea on us here at Sports Daily. We'll come back. Hour number 2, lots to go here on the program. We'll do it next.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. It is Sports Daily. It is KFH. Glad that you're with us today here on the program, whether you're listening to us on KFH, whether you are listening to us for free on the Odyssey app, whether you are watching us then on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. If it's YouTube or Twitch, just search KFH Radio. Congratulations to Wes for winning some HTO free iced tea cards there at the back end of the last hour. Thanks for listening there. Enjoy that on us here at Sports Daily, Wes. We will have some other big giveaways coming up in this hour as well. So stay tuned for a chance to win some WinSurge vouchers, a chance to win Def Leppard and Motley Crue tickets in Tulsa. Man, that's going to be so awesome. All right, Tommy. As we make our way into the second hour, it's jam-packed in the first. We've got the Royals on a win streak to talk about, but let's circle back to what we were discussing with Fitz and sort of just catch everybody up on what's out there with this conference realignment. So you've got the Arizona Board of Regents meeting as it pertains to Arizona and Arizona State. Was that meeting today, Tommy? Is that right?
Yeah, it's going to be this afternoon, I believe 3 o'clock. And I'm not sure if that's Pacific time or whatever, but yeah, they'll be meeting this afternoon.
Okay, so that meeting happens today. That's important. We have Oregon in all kinds of rumors. There are some that, are rumors to perhaps this is, a chance for them to get into the Big Ten, as the report comes out from multiple places yesterday that the Big Ten would potentially be interested in at least Oregon and Washington, maybe even Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford. Then you have, the Big 12 seemingly wanting to wait a second on Oregon. A report this morning that said as USC joined the Big Ten, it didn't want Oregon to be able to come. So there's a lot going there. And then you have the four-corner aspect of things for the Big 12. Do they go ahead and, take all three? Do they take just Arizona? Do they not take anybody until they find out what happens with Oregon? Everything is moving sort of simultaneously here. And then, oh, by the way, Tommy, Florida State is very publicly unhappy with their president. I'm watching ESPN this morning, and their president's on video saying, gosh, we might need to leave the ACC here unless they're going to give us an uneven share. Yeah. And I would caution the ACC there, by the way. That doesn't usually work out in your favor. Just ask the Big 12 and Texas how that works. So this thing is like coast to coast, all sort of moving at the same time. And again, we've said for a long time, it felt like there was one more just massive change coming here soon. And then things would probably settle for a few years because these rights deals have to set in place.
I don't know what kind of leverage Florida State actually thinks that they have right now. I mean, do they have an invitation from another conference? Is the SEC looking at them? Is the Big Ten looking at them? I don't know. And maybe they are, but that certainly hasn't been anything that I've seen anywhere. It just sounds like they are demanding, more money from the ACC, and that deal runs a long time. So I don't know what their strategy is. Because I think the big deal with these other conferences that might be looking at Florida State is because that ACC deal runs for so long. I would imagine, I don't know all the finances behind it, but I would imagine it's going to be fairly cost prohibitive for Florida State to leave the ACC, like exit fees and like things like that, because that deal goes on for so long. So I'm not exactly sure what their strategy is on this. But it certainly seems like they are jumping on board as a lot of other things are going on in the world of conference realignment. And I think that Florida State's saying, hey, we're here too, and we want more money. We want to go to another conference. I'm just not sure how likely that is.
Well, I don't think it's likely. I just think it amplifies the problem the ACC faces. And I just, the buyouts are so massive for schools in the ACC. I don't know if there's even the powerful SEC or Big Ten would be able to get something done right now there. That is a little bit, I also, I don't know how much that's going to impact what's happening on the other side of the country either. I think that they can happen separately. I do imagine that at some point, if there's ACC poaching happening, that will be led by the SEC. Because if the SEC is going to go any bigger, that's really the only place for them to go, don't you think? Like,
Yeah.
They have to really be selective. They don't have to, but they get to. And so if you're talking about additions to your league and the SEC, the ACC is really the only place left to go. The SEC is not going after anybody west. They shouldn't, right? It doesn't fit their profile at all. And so if you're just able to cherry pick and you're the SEC, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina at the minimum, and maybe like Virginia's in there, that makes sense to me. The Big Ten also would have interest, but I think most people would tell you if you had a choice of SEC or Big Ten, I think people would generally choose SEC. And the southern portion of the ACC, fits better with the SEC anyway. Miami, Florida, Miami's in the mix there. You could have Florida, Florida State, and Miami all in the same league. That would be incredible for the SEC. But so I think you can separate all that stuff. I think the Big Ten going west makes a lot of sense, right? The Big Ten looking for maybe a bigger footprint than the SEC in total because the SEC just gets to do what it wants anyway, and it doesn't need to have a bigger footprint. So I think if you're the Big 12, you can not worry too much about that. It really comes down to Oregon. Are you willing to wait on Oregon, or do you strike now and go for the four corners, or at least just Arizona? Brett Yormark has some decisions to make here, but they're back in a position of power. Arizona State, and Utah will not have better offers than joining the Big 12 if the Big 12 wants them right now. They won't have a bet because, Tommy, there isn't a world where the Pac-12 survives this. I can't figure out what it would be. If the Big 10 takes any combination of those four teams and the Big 12 takes any more of those other teams, the Pac-12 is not going to survive, at least at a level where it can match TV deals at any point. So I think that it's really up to the Big 12 here to make that decision. Do you wait for Oregon? I would, but if the Big 10 ultimately wants him, Oregon's not going to stay in the Big 12 anyway. Or do you just go now, get your four corner schools, and proceed with business as usual, which has been the expectation all along that those would be the schools they'd be interested in?
I like the idea of the Big 12 bringing in Oregon. I like their profile.
Well,
I like their football program. I like their basketball program. But I don't think Oregon is this end-all be-all university. I don't think that it's like the Big 12 has to have that, right?
Be-all athletic program. It instantly
I don't think so. I don't think it. I mean, I think it's good.
If Oregon stepped in right now, don't you think? And I'm really trying to think as I'm about to say this out loud because I don't want to like overlook anybody, but I think Oregon would become the most high-profile football program in the league if they jumped in.
I mean, yeah, I guess I can see that. I mean, I think that Baylor is probably up there as far as high profile.
I mean, TCU just played in a national championship game,
up there.
But that was out of
K-State
nowhere. Oregon's
up
in
there.
the mix constantly, right? And facilities and.
But here's the thing. I don't want, again, I'm not trying to knock Oregon here. I think that they've got a great football program. I think they have a good basketball program fairly consistently. So that's good. But let's be very cautious here to not like prop up Oregon as like this amazing property that you have to have and that you covet. Like, I don't see Oregon as a replacement for Texas or a replacement for Oklahoma. Like, I don't think Oregon's on the same level as those programs. I think it's good, and I would want them if I'm in the Big 12, but I'm also not willing to bring in Oregon at the expense of other things. So, like, if you have to wait for Oregon and you risk losing some other schools because of that, I'm not sure I would do that. Now, if there's a situation where, Brett Yormark can be aggressive and say, all right, we are safe to wait for Oregon. Nothing bad is going to happen to the Big 12 if we wait a little while for Oregon to come on. Okay, like, I can get on board with that. I just don't want to give up the ship to be able to bring in Oregon and potentially risk the stability that you already have.
Well, here's why I think the Big 12 is in power now, and the Colorado move is important, because I'm an impatient person, like, just in general. It might be, and I'm not like, it might be my greatest like character flaw as a functioning human, is that I'm very impatient. And so know that when I say this, I don't think that the Big 12 has to go quickly here. As much as I want clarity on this, Colorado coming over lit the match, right? That sort of set the fire.
Yeah.
And so right now the desperation isn't for the Big 12. It's not for the Big 10. It's for the Pac-12. And because I don't think there's anything out there for the Pac-12, and that's been made very clear, I do think that the Big 12 has been granted some patience here in just making sure, having the appropriate conversations with Oregon, that, hey, guys, like, we would love to have you. We're not going to wait forever, and we need some, assurances that it's not just a temporary thing if the Big Ten comes calling. We need you on board with this master plan that we have to try to get competitive with those leagues in 2031. But we want to have you. Okay. So I think that's top, because the networks are going to want Oregon, right? Like, and if you go to the networks, then it's at the sacrifice of one of the four corner schools. Okay. I'd rather have Arizona, Oregon, and I don't really care who the others are. If it's Arizona State or Utah, don't care. That's whatever. In fact, I think I'd probably prioritize Utah over Arizona State if I was, picking and choosing here, but it's not that easy and it's not that simple. So I do think they have the ability now to be a little patient in a world where patience almost always bites you in the butt. I think they can do it, because I just don't see any path forward for the Pac-12. I don't. And I haven't. And now that was, sort of reassured with that meeting. Was that this week or last week? Days are running together. It was last week.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything there for them. So the Big 12 isn't forced to rush things at all, because they've got a year. Colorado comes in 24. Texas and Oklahoma go out. So, what is the absolute best possible scenario for the league? I think there is some merit to going after that, not what's the fastest thing for the league. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that's probably what we'll see.
I think that the other thing that you need to keep in mind, and you did mention this a few minutes ago, ultimately, I think it's fairly clear that Oregon wants to be in the Big Ten. And whether or not that happens now or a few years from now, it does sound like, with a ton of reporting that I've read, that the ultimate goal for Oregon would be to enter the Big Ten. So you do that, you bring them in potentially to the Big 12, and that's fine, but you're running the risk of having them bounce after a handful of years. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe the amount of eyeballs on your product in the conference by having Oregon in the conference for 5 years or whatever that is ends up being worth it. But I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me, and I'm not going to say it's an overwhelming part, but there is a part of me that would be a little leery of paying Oregon a full share, knowing that they don't really want the Big 12 to be their end goal. They want to be in the Big 10.
You have to those are the conversations that have to happen now, right? And I think ultimately the Big 10 would want Oregon, especially if they get Washington, and especially if they are going to make a move west and potentially add Stanford and Cal, which, academics wise and everything obviously makes a ton of sense for the Big 10. Then you want Oregon to be a part of that. There's no question. So it could be simple, right? If those conversations the Big 10 are having right now are legitimate, then, but you got to put yourself in Oregon's shoes too. here to some degree. Like, you're sitting there as Oregon, you got a great opportunity with the Big 12. Now knowing what the Pac-12 is going to look like, you know that the Big 12 is a great opportunity. Can you, as Oregon, afford to wait and see what the Big 10 does? Because what if Florida State starts a fire on the East Coast, right? And the Big 10's like, well, hang on a minute. Now we might want to go after like Virginia and some of these, North Carolina and some of these schools out there, and a better combination of schools for us. So that's where Oregon has a big decision to make. I don't know how you can get Oregon to assure you that they're not going to do that. It just seems impossible in this current landscape. So Oregon sort of becomes this microscope place, right? And we've seen, various people say the Big 12 is willing to wait on Oregon to see, because Oregon does fit. Because imagine, Tommy, like, think about too, like, if you're the Big 12, yeah, the Four Corners schools make geographic sense on August 3rd of 23. But let's think down the road when the Big 12, I think, is going to come to the table in 2031 with a bigger basketball profile, and you're talking about Gonzaga, and you're talking about some of that stuff. Oregon helps your basketball profile too, and it just makes you innately, it makes you a lot more valuable down the road. It just does. So if your plan is 2031, Oregon makes you more valuable in 2031. I don't think there's any question about that. It is a cat.
Even if Oregon isn't in the conference in 2031,
that's the problem. That's what you have to sort of sort through here, and just try to figure out, like, if you're Yormark, how real is the Big Ten interest now out there? Will that remain their goal? Because that would put the Big Ten at 20, right? So then are they really going to also go east if something happens to the ACC? And the answer to that might be yes, because you could go 12 and 12.
right?
But, I don't know. I don't know that there's language that you could invent now that other schools don't have to also adhere to that would prevent Oregon from making the sound business decision, which will ultimately be the Big Ten if the Big Ten wants it to be so. So the only option in that scenario, I think, if you're the Brett Yormark in the Big 12, is to wait. And so what could you do in the short term? You could add Arizona and then wait. But now we have this Board of Regents thing, which, again, I don't think there's a lot of legs to that. Or do you go to the networks and you say, we're going to get to 16 now, and we want, we are going to add Oregon if they want to come in. And if they want to come in down the road, we'll add Oregon and UConn as a lesser member. You guys good with that? Like, we're going to get to 16, and then we're just going to have, sort of a door open for Oregon, and we'll just add UConn to make it even until then. And we'd go to 18, 2 9-team divisions, which is totally fine. Like, nobody cares. I think that could be an option for them too. But that gets into the network conversations and the contracts. And Fitz brought that up. I didn't realize there was a cap on it. So that, I'm not smart enough to know that. But Big 12's in a good spot. The Pac-12 is now in an even worse spot than we thought they were. And so the pressure and the intensity on the Big 12, I think, goes down significantly, because they don't need to get to an even number until 2024. Like, they've got some time here.
I think that being patient is probably the right thing to do in general. And I'm talking about from a big picture view, like talking about the Big 12 from their perspective, the Big 10 from their perspective, like the conferences that are in a position of strength or at least stability right now. It behooves them, I think, in general, to be patient, right? That being said, though, there are so many other outside factors that are playing into this, where it's kind of like everything is happening very quickly, at least it seems like. I mentioned at the top of the show, like, I think we're on the edge of the cliff looking over with, massive fundamental changes. So patience is not something, even though I think it would be in the best interest of everybody, I don't think it's likely. I think we're going to start seeing things start to move, very quickly. And it comes back to that media deal for the Pac-12. If it was better, and even if it wasn't great, but if it was better and it allowed the schools in the Pac-12 to say, all right, we're not quite there yet, but we're on the right track. And Kliavkoff, go back, We feel like we can get a little bit more, but we're comfortable at least waiting it out right now. But that deal sounds like it was bad enough that, these other schools are like, get us the hell out of here now. It's not going to get any better. And so, I think that's where it's at right now. So there is no patience, I think, because of how bad that media deal was. I think it's ultimately going to be the four corner schools for the Big 12. I don't think Arizona and Arizona State are going to be split up. I mentioned this to you last night. We were talking back and forth about this. The Board of Regents, I think, is fairly clear that they don't want to split up Arizona and Arizona State. But I think the reason they're saying that is because the Big 12 is open to taking Arizona State. If the Big 12 wasn't, then I don't think that the Board of Regents would have an issue at all splitting them up.
I just don't think it matters. The Board of Regents threw a fit about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State over the years, and it didn't matter ultimately. I think that that's their duty and their obligation is to try to take care of Arizona State, but they can't do it. They cannot hold Arizona back because Arizona State doesn't have the same opportunity. To me, that's never made sense to, publicly funded institutions to intentionally, not do what's best for that university. I'd be mad, right? Like, I'd be mad if I was a taxpayer in that state. Like, why would we do that? Like, different schools are in different leagues all over this country. It's not that big of a deal. It's just not. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk some Royals because they deserve to be talked about for the first time. On a positive note, we're going to be fair to them. It's exciting time. It's the most exciting time they've had in their season. Not even close, in my opinion. But before we do it, here it is. Big giveaway right now on Sports Daily. Rock and roll fans, or as my kids would call it, Rocky Roll. Rocky Roll fans, get ready because we're going to take let's do our third caller during the break right now. Def Leppard and Motley Crue, the World Tour, coming to H.A. Chapman Stadium in Tulsa. That's on August 16th. Special guest Alice Cooper. Get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com for Def Leppard and Motley Crue on the campus of the University of Tulsa, or you can win a pair of tickets right now. Right now. Third caller during the break, 869-1240, Def Leppard and Motley Crue. Good luck, everybody. We'll announce the winner on the other side. We'll be right back with more Sports Daily. You just heard the promo. We haven't talked about this, Tommy. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. We are now the home of K-State athletics. Big switch for us here on KFH. It's been in the decade I've been on and off the air or so here as part of this radio family. It's been the other way around, but I'm excited to bring in K-State and have conversations and shift now to that level of football program and a growing basketball program and some of the access. And of course, it doesn't do just a whole lot for you and I because we talk about everybody, right? Like we don't really have a preference in that. It just might create a little more access in different ways, but we'll have all three covered for sure. But you will hear games now for K-State here on KFH. So, enjoy that as you will. Congratulations to Blake. Blake, our big winner. Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Alice Cooper. You kidding me? Blake going to Tulsa on us to see it. What is today? Thursday. So we will have 6 more pairs of those tickets to give away before that concert happens on the 16th, which is I haven't even looked at this. It's a Wednesday night concert. So don't worry. Lots of opportunities to still win those as we give things away. We're very generous this time of year. I love giving stuff away, Tommy. It's like this old school radio thing and feel, and I love it. I love giveaways, right?
It's great. I mean, I love giving stuff away, especially big concerts and things like that. It's always a blast to be able to get that access to, go and go watch a big time concert and Def Leppard and Motley Crue and Alice Cooper. That's a major concert. Getting a chance to send some people there on us. It doesn't get any better than that.
Man, I just got a message from my wife. It's raining outside. Is that happening?
Oh,
I'm down here in my basement.
I don't know. I have no windows in this room, so I have no clue.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. No windows. We're locked in here, locked and loaded. All right, let's talk some Kansas City Royals. 5 games in a row now, which is, that in and of itself is exciting, Tommy. In a year where we have lacked win streaks, we'll see if they can keep it going. Don't you just know that's coming too? Like some absurd win streak or like winning baseball down the stretch here. But that would be amazing for this organization. Just to give some hope, like it is not hopeless. And here's a reminder of why the answer isn't to just always trade everybody away when you're not succeeding. These players are here for a reason. So the most exciting thing about last night, though, was Cole Reagans, Tommy. Cole Reagans comes over. They were able to get a really nice return to get him in there in the first place. He has a really nice track record. And he comes in, and he's fantastic last night. Fantastic. 8 strikeouts in 6 innings. 94 pitches is all it took him to get there. And, as you look for things in the season to get excited about, well, there you can get excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while, I feel like, since there's been a pitcher for Kansas City that went out and had that kind of performance. I know that Brady Singer has pitched pretty well as of late. But man, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see that sort of pitching performance. We've known about the young bats in the lineup for a while now. Some of them are coming through, like Bobby Witt Jr. I think Michael Massey is coming through some. And then there are others that really aren't. But the Achilles heel has always been the pitching for the Royals. That's where it's been for quite a while, both starting pitching and bullpen. They went out in the Aroldis Chapman trade, and they got a guy in Cole Reagans that has shown that he can be an important part of this rotation for Kansas City. I don't know if that means long-term. I don't know if they see him as a guy that can be somebody in the rotation for quite a while, but it is refreshing to see that kind of pitching performance come in for Kansas City. And the fact that, and we've talked about this before, it's always one thing or another. It's like the pitching is good, but the hitting doesn't come through, or the hitting is good and the pitching fails them. In this case, and what we've seen over the last 5 games, everything is kind of coming together. They've got a chance today, Brady Singer on the bump against the Mets, who are reeling. They've got a chance to make it 6 and sweep the series.
It is Cole Reagans projects to the middle back into the rotation, but that matters, right? That's an important thing. I don't know what he'll ultimately be in the big leagues, but I absolutely think he has a chance to be a starter every 5 days in the league. I don't think there's much question about that. And, he was a former minor league pitcher of the year in a pretty good organization. So, those are the kinds, and they didn't really get anybody like that in any of the other trades, and that's okay. But, I think it's important, Tommy, if you're if you're a fan of a team that's struggling, to enjoy it when the times are good. They have not been good basically all year. There have been, 2 times where I think you're like, oh, okay. It was the Aroldis Chapman trade, and we're like, that's a pretty good return. And it was right now in a 5-game win streak.
Yeah.
And watching Bobby Witt Jr. lately. But there hasn't been much. So this sort of becomes like the first time outside of the first, month or so of the season. It's like the Royals for sports people, they kind of become must-see TV, must-listen radio as you're driving around here. As you hear the games, of course, on KFH, like, oh, okay. Let's see if they can keep this going. Let's just see if there's some sort of exciting magic as we, sit in August and make our way through in a season we know won't end anywhere. So, good for the Royals for getting on a 5-game win streak. The other thing I think that matters for Tommy are players like Bobby Witt Jr. and some of these young guys. He hit his 30th steal last night, which was what he had as a rookie last year. So he'll exceed that. His numbers are really starting to look pretty good here. And I'm interested to see where they end and how he ends up, but it will be good one way or the other. I'm excited about it. It's, and that's saying a lot. I'm excited about it when we talk about the Royals because there hadn't been a lot of that.
You know what? The final record for the Royals could still be 87-75. I mean, they'd have to win every single game out, which is obviously not going to happen. I say that in jest, but they're on a 5-game winning streak right now. Make it another, 62-game win streak or whatever, however many games are left in the regular season. But they do have an opportunity to end this season on a positive note where it maybe won't seem as hopeless as it did a month ago or 6 weeks ago, or even maybe as recently as 2 weeks ago. They have an opportunity to do that. I think if they can play 500 ball the rest of the way out, you start to feel okay about the direction that they're going. But you can't have a letdown, that they've won 5 in a row. You can't follow that up with getting swept or, losing, different series coming up. They've got to keep this momentum going. That's been really difficult for them to do. I mean, they're on a 5-game winning streak, but this was also the first streak that was more than 3 games this entire season or more than 2 games this entire season. So they've had a hard time following this up. I don't know if they quite know how to keep momentum going, but now's the time to do that.
It is. It is the time to do it. And look, let's be careful with our expectations, but let's just enjoy what's happening now. And now you've got a chance. Like, hey, every 5th day when Reagan starts, let's pay close attention to that. That's going to matter to the future of our organization. Let's watch Bobby Witt Jr. and let's see if they can win some games. Salvador Perez is there. Let's see how much fun this team can have down the stretch. All right, 869-1240 is the number to call. Tommy just sent me a note. There's a Pac-12 reporter saying he expects the future of the Pac-12 to be determined in the next 24 to 36 hours. That's out there for you. I don't know. I don't even know what that means anymore. I just know
it makes me wonder, if he put 24 to 36 hours and you look at that 36-hour timeline, then you're looking at tomorrow evening, late afternoon, early evening. And better than I do because you work in the world of news. Nothing better than a Friday evening news dump, right? I mean, what?
Yeah,
it's going to be a big deal, but maybe that's the timing they're looking at.
The teams but the news dump is usually when you're trying to avoid a bad situation. Whatever change comes, somebody will be excited about it. And then, sort of the latest with the ACC, I'm looking at a CBS Sports story here with here's a quote, and here's why I just don't know I'm not comfortable with any of it yet. This is a Florida State official, and it would be Florida State's president lamented the gap. We mentioned that. So he's saying we're seeing large media deals that have been made like the Big Ten and the SEC, which in many ways, and perhaps in its exaggeration, have created an existential crisis for Florida State. We will be $30 million per school per year behind in our gap and conference distribution with contracts that are set to go through 2036. Holy cow. The current situation presents a very difficult situation for us. Without increasing revenue, we'll face major challenges in being able to compete in football as the landscape's changing and trying to be competitive in the NIL, coaching salaries, attractive facilities to continue to build the brand and be competitive. Here's where it gets interesting. He says the Seminoles, quote, will at some point consider leaving the ACC, barring radical change in revenue distribution. Other trustees were even more candid, Tommy. So this is trustee. What's a trustee? I don't know, but somebody important, it sounds like. Drew Weatherford saying, it's not a matter of if we leave the ACC, but how and when we leave. Another trustee, which I just assume are people with a lot of money, Justin Roth, additionally calling for an exit to come within the next year. I just have a feeling that impacts somehow. Like, here's the question. If the SEC could, without penalty, add ACC schools, do you think it could? Do you think it would be interested? I guess that's the first and most important question.
Yeah. I don't know, because this is all coming from Florida State people. And I said it at the top of the show. Do they even have an invitation to go anywhere else?
I don't know.
So, well, I mean, they're putting themselves out there.
They would have an invitation somewhere among the three. But yeah, you better have conversations that say, yes, we'd have interest before you start running your mouth, San Diego State.
Yeah. The other thing that I have an issue with is these schools agreed on this deal for the ACC. That's the only reason a deal gets done, is the schools have to agree on it. And at the time when the ACC locked in their deal, I'm sure that the thought process was, this is going to mean that we will have stability and security for a long time to come. And again, the market changes, right? And I get it. And other conferences are coming in for more money. But at the time, it was almost like, I feel like the ACC and these member schools, they knew and they understood, or at least they should have, that we're sacrificing larger payouts for long-term stability. And in the case of Florida State, I guess it's not good enough anymore. But you agreed to it. You agreed to it.
Well, the conference agreed to it, but I think it's appropriate and okay to be frustrated that conference leadership did not have a proper pulse of the industry. That it's a bad deal. I mean, when you look at it now, it's a bad deal. When you look across the country, if I'm a member, I'm upset that it's a bad deal, because you're going to get lapped. And that's the point. Like, the Big 12 can go to the table one more time, maybe, Tommy, two more times before you can get to the deal. Like,
so why in the world would these member schools in the ACC at the time accept such a long-term deal where they're getting like long-term security, I guess, but they don't have an opportunity to renegotiate it? I mean, it sounds like ESPN doesn't have the appetite to do it because they know they're getting a great deal. Like, at what point, why would the schools in the ACC have agreed to this?
They lost a negotiation. I don't know how much input. I think you put it on your conference leadership to negotiate that stuff. And if your conference leadership misjudges it and presents it to you as this great thing, you're like, okay, that sounds good. But then, the proof is in the pudding. You look around and you're like, well, we just got fleeced. Like, who told us this was going to be a good deal? You got to have a better pulse of, look, it's no different than the Big 12 under former leadership in panic mode versus a more forward-thinking, commissioner who now has them in a position of strength. So I think it's perfectly fine for these schools in the ACC to be mad, because they're going to lose out to good players. They're going to lose out to money. Like, and look across the sports world. There's people unhappy with contracts all the time, right? I don't know what their exit is, and I don't know. There's a really interesting story from Dennis Dodd you should check out, and we won't get into it here. It's way too much in the weeds, but it's about potential like private equity investors in college athletics. Okay, so like in theory, somebody could come in as a private investor and a partner, and like the people that would be interested in that would scoff at the buyout fee to try and do whatever it is that they think they can do to make more money.
Wow.
This thing could get crazy. Check out that story.
Here come the Saudis.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Check out that story. The one thing about that is our schools are covered up in government and all that stuff. I don't know that the Saudis would be able to as easily jump in unless they became private entities. It's a mess. What's going to happen? All I care about is like, what does Big 12 look like? Can we just get to that? I told you I was an impatient person. This has been a really hard topic over the last 6 months for an impatient person to try and navigate. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. More Sports Daily right after this. back in, everybody, here to Sports Daily. Glad to have you here with us. It is a giveaway day, man. We're excited to give those tickets away to Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Alice Cooper. Excited to give away the HTO, some Wind Surge vouchers. We can throw those on the table here real quick. Wind Surge vouchers, a 4-pack. We're running out of days on home games, so we'll get you a 4-pack. It's easy. You pick the game that you go to. 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. We'll give away that 4-pack here as we make our way through the last segment before we'll tell you what's on tap. It's a busy day on the network. We'll get to that in just a minute. So good luck, everybody, in that contest as well. We've talked just a ton about, the sports world, the college sports world more specifically. It's almost like, Tommy, it has overtaken like this coming season, right? Of sports itself, of football. And as we announce today that, we're going to partner, be the home broadcast station for K-State athletics here in the area, K-State football just sort of gets to, cruise right along through here and begin the expectations about trying to repeat as Big 12 champions.
Yeah. I do want to mention very quickly, I know we're talking K-State here, but a new thread from Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports about conference realignment. Here are the notes. I'm just going to tell you what he's saying right now. All eyes remain on what the University of Arizona decides, go to Big 12 or stay in the Pac-12. There is still some belief that the 9 remaining Pac-12 schools could decide to stay together and agree to a new media deal. If so, they could then add San Diego State, maybe others. He's also saying that the Big Ten is hesitant about offering bids to Oregon, Washington, and perhaps Cal and Stanford unless the Pac-12 further deteriorates. If the Pac-12 sticks together, the Big Ten will likely stay put. If the Big Ten does decide to expand and offer membership, it would be at a discounted rate for some multi-year period that is still to be determined. And the 24 hours will determine a lot. That's from Dan.
So a cut rate would still be more than the Big 12 could offer Oregon. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe it is on the Big 12 to decide here. And look, I read that as that, Arizona goes and the rest might want to stick together. The rest might want to stick together only if they don't have an offer from the Big 12, right? You don't, if you're Arizona State, you don't choose to stay in the Pac-12 if Arizona left, because that doesn't make any sense at all. Everyone keeps saying next 24 to 36 hours. I don't, boy, it just doesn't seem like it would go that fast to me, but I guess it will. And hat tip to Colorado for just getting rid of the necessity to wait on all this. Like, what are we waiting for here? Right. It ain't coming in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and it's definitely a domino effect, right? It started with Colorado. Now there's an Arizona Board of Regents meeting. Whatever they decide, potentially with Utah, I guess, then at that point, the Big Ten comes into play. But it sounds like, at least according to Dan Wetzel, that the Big Ten is not going to offer anything unless the Pac-12 continues to fall apart. And maybe ultimately, and we haven't really talked about this scenario, could the remaining Pac-12 schools just say, we don't have the appetite to move, we'll just go ahead and take the deal? I doubt it, but I guess there still is that thought on the table.
And takes it. Good luck if you choose to do that. Swing big, your mark. Yeah. Go get Oregon. Go add all 3 of the other 4 corner schools and go get UConn. Let's go big or go home here. Let's make it happen. What would that put them at? 18 teams?
18.
Do it.
Yep.
Just do it. Let's get this done. Let's be done with this and get ready for the future. 869-1240. It's a busy day on the network. We'll tell you what's on tap next on Sports Daily. All right. Congratulations to Keith for winning the Wind Surge vouchers again. Congrats to Blake for our Def Leppard, Motley Crue, and Alice Cooper giveaway. And congratulations to Wes for winning our HTO free iced teas today. That gets us through all that. Look, everybody says next 24 hours, maybe we'll have massive conference realignment news tomorrow. Jim Rome at 11. The Royals trying to make it 6 in a row against the Mets. Coverage begins at 1 o'clock right here on KFH. Then you get the Hall of Fame game tonight. Some football for the appetite. That coverage begins at 6:30. It's been a crazy Thursday. Might just very well be a crazy Friday. Tommy, enjoy the day.
Sounds good. We'll see you back here on Friday.
There goes Tommy. For Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. We will see you tomorrow.